My name is John Roджерс. I'm a material scientist, and so I'm interested in new materials, and in particular, new materials for electronics. And we're interested in developing those materials to enable a future in electronics that you can't achieve with conventional silicon wafer-based technologies. In particular, we're developing new materials and ways to fabricate circuits that allow us to build fully integrated systems that have the mechanical properties of a rubber band. We make silicon thin to make it flexible, and that flexibility is just a result of an elementary principle in bending mechanics, which dictates that if you make anything thin, it becomes flexible. So a sheet of paper is flexible, a 2x4 is not. It's essentially the same material. It's just by virtue of the thin geometry of the paper that it becomes bendable and flexible. So unlike a silicon wafer, we can stretch and bend and twist these devices in a reversible way that doesn't destroy their operating characteristics. And that kind of technology could be useful for lots of things, ranging from applications in consumer electronics, where you might want your laptop display or your e-book reader to have a form that's more like a sheet of paper. It could be rolled up when you're not reading it. But what we think is even more compelling than those kind of applications is the ability to take this electronics and integrate it with the human body in ways, again, that would be impossible if you're stuck with the rigid, brittle form that conventional electronics takes due to the fact that it's all built on silicon wafers. We are currently focused on two areas. One that addresses illnesses associated with heart, and the other that addresses malfunctioning of the brain. And in the area of cardiac applications, we're trying to address a problem that has to do with a surgical procedure used to eliminate cardiac arrhythmias. One of them is illustrated here. This is a thin sheet of silicon electronics, almost in the form of a tape or almost like a piece of saran wrap that conformally wraps the soft, moist tissue of the heart in an open heart surgical procedure that's used to eliminate aberrant tissue in the heart that's giving rise to arrhythmias in the patient. It consists of about 2,000 silicon transistors and sensors, and those sensors interface with the tissue of the heart just through a capillary interaction. There are no penetrating pins or separate adhesives, but this circuit is floppy enough that you can just mount it on the surface of the heart and it won't move around even during vigorous beating of the heart. And what this device does is it provides a high-resolution spatial and temporal mapping of electrical activity associated with contraction of the cardiac muscle as the heart is beating. And it really provides the surgeon a window into the behavior of the tissue that allows them to pinpoint the location of the aberrant tissue. Once they've done that, this device is peeled back and that aberrant tissue is simply resected to complete the surgical operation. And this kind of advanced diagnostic technology allows that procedure to happen much more rapidly than it would otherwise be possible using conventional approaches, thereby improving the efficacy of the surgery. The other application area is in devices that can diagnose epilepsy and the kind of electrical activity, abnormal activity that's happening in patients that suffer from acute epilepsy as a first step to a surgical procedure to eliminate that kind of problem. And so this kind of electronics is built on a silk platform, and the silk platform is flexible, but it's not able to conform to the highly curvilinear surfaces of the brain. So the way the surgeon uses the device is they take this electronics supported by this film of silk, mount it on the brain, and then simply rinse the entire system with a solution of warm saline, salt water essentially. And that water dissolves the silk, which is a water-soluble class of material. It's also bioresorbable, so that dissolved silk, flows into the brain cavity, but over time it's resorbed by the body, and so it's completely non-invasive in that sense. And when the silk has washed away, what it really leaves behind is an ultra-thin form of circuit technology that is floppy enough that it can really conform to the contours of the brain and establish an interface between the electronics and the brain that allows for very high resolution mapping of electrical processes in the brain, thereby offering unprecedented types of capabilities to a surgeon who's trying to locate abnormalities in the brain for a subsequent therapeutic procedure to eliminate the effects of that. I think success for us in this area is going to be defined by whether we are able to achieve translation of this technology into the hospital type environment. And so that's really what we're targeting. We're academics, we're interested in the fundamental science, we spend a lot of time understanding the materials and the mechanics aspects of these devices, publishing papers, educating students, but in terms of the research itself, that's the goal that we're aiming toward. I think the excitement really lies in two things for me. One is I like interacting with the students. So, I think being a university professor, there's nothing more satisfying or exciting than teaching students and mentoring them. And so that's one excitement. The other is the feeling that we're developing now that the technologies that we're working on are going to have a long-term positive impact on society, human health, and related issues. So there's a certain level of satisfaction that's growing over time that we're working on things that have real value beyond the educational and the scientific aspects, but things that can go beyond that and be more broadly useful.